question. What kind of people do we want to represent us in Parliament? Kay says on Facebook, politicians are too focused on their careers. One of the problems, Kay, I think, and I'm going to make this point again, and please, if you think I'm wrong, challenge me. The last time I made this, Sir Nicholas Soames rang in to tell me he thought I was wrong. But I do genuinely think that too many of our politicians are literally career politicians. They've never had a paper round before being in politics. They've got nothing to go back to. And so for them, getting re-elected is the single most important thing. I think we need more people from the real world, and I'm going to make this point again. Everybody goes on about diversity, racial diversity, sexual diversity, ethnic diversity. Everyone talks about diversity except for one particular kind of diversity, which they don't seem to want. They don't want working class people in politics, and that is absolutely the truth about our two key parties. That's my view. All these big names retiring from politics, 58 so far that we know, who are not standing for re-election, and that list, I think, can only grow in the next day or two. What kind of people do we want in politics? Shazwellin says, Parliament should run like a business. Proportional representation allows specialist people with their own subjects. Well, Shazwell, I have to say, I do think an element of PR is now very badly needed. On YouTube, Sarah says, working class people in politics is what we need. Sarah, I think we do, but there are very, very few of them. Mark is calling from Belfast. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening again, Nigel. How are you?
Yeah, good to have you on again, Mark. Very, very well. We seem to have a huge number of callers these days from Northern Ireland. I guess politics is very, very real. Now, you know, I made the point earlier that I do think in Northern Ireland you tend to get some quite big personalities in politics.
Of course.
What are the qualities you're looking for in an MP, Mark?
Well, I think really what we need is, and if I could make 2 points, please.
Of course.
The first is Boris Johnson cannot possibly be re-elected as Prime Minister without the support of the Brexit Party.
Right.
Particularly in parts of Northern England and Wales, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is that what we need are, as Theo alluded earlier, ordinary people to be out campaigning and hopefully elected to the Parliament of the United Kingdom. I have a DUP MP here. Mm-hmm. I come, as I mentioned to you before, on my way, ironically, to Wimbledon, to my sisters for my godson's First Communion.
Very good.
And I think that we need ordinary people, not people who are removed, as Milton would say, cut off men, to be elected to Parliament by ordinary people to make the laws of the United Kingdom. Hopefully we will exit the European Union and thereafter be able to make our own laws in a sovereign Parliament.
Mark, I absolutely hope and pray that's true. When you say ordinary people, you mean people connected into the real world, yeah?
Of course, yes. As I said to you, I mentioned to you when I met you who my grandfather's cousin was.
You did.
A Republican who died, killed by the English, for his role in trying to establish a republic which existed for only 24 years until our accession to the European Economic Community.
Yeah, no, I know you feel very strongly on these things, Mark. I know you feel very strongly on these things. But, Mark, when you say ordinary people, what sort of age do you think is good for an MP? I mean, is 25 too young?
I believe that 25 probably is too young. I mean, I was first reading for my degree when I was 23, and have recently been appointed or elected a senior lawyer in the Far East. And I believe that ordinary lawyers, as Bryce Dixon first lectured me many years ago when I went to Queen's, lawyers need to be people who live in the real world.
People from the real world.
90% of them aren't.
Mark, I get the point. Thank you very much indeed. Too many lawyers, too many Oxbridge graduates who've not had a proper job. That's the sort of message that is coming through. I have to say, I'd rather do agree with it. Tell me I'm wrong. Lynn is a new caller from Wellington in Somerset. Good evening, Lynn.
Hello, Nigel. It's an absolute privilege to talk to you.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you. Made my day. So what sort of people do we need, Lynn, in Parliament? Come on.
Well, to sum it up, we need people that are going to do what the voters want them to do. Now, that's quite a simple thing, but what I can tell you easier, the kind of people we don't need, and the kind of people we don't need are the career politicians that we've got now. They're so thick-skinned, they don't care what people say about them, write about them, they don't care what their constituents think. All they are concentrating on is get the job done for 5 years, whatever the job is. They don't care how they do it or what the result is, just do it. Come out at the end with a big fat pension, go and make millions like Tony Blair. They don't really care about the country and the electorate.
Well, I don't think many go off and make millions, Lynn. I mean,
some of them do.
Well, Tony Blair certainly has, but I don't think your average backbencher who leaves Parliament goes on and makes millions.
Well, no, this is true. I'm probably painting with very broad brushstrokes here, but the fact is, Nigel, that we are all absolutely fed up with all the politicians, and I'm afraid they all get lumped together because we're just so sick of it.
I have a feeling, Lynn, I have a real feeling here that as and when Brexit is done, goodness knows when that's going to be, but as and when it is done, I think the desire for political reform in this country is going to be enormous, and I think the postal voting system is an absolute joke and open to abuse.
I agree. Yeah.
I think the first past the post system works when there are just two parties in politics, but completely fails to work when there's a multiplicity of parties. I think the House of Lords is just an absolute abomination.
I agree with everything you're saying.
So I think actually, Lynn, and I also think that we're going to have to think about having a written constitution.
Yes.
Given that we now have a Supreme Court making political decisions without any framework of rules under which to operate. So I think big change is coming, and I think this is going to be. I think once we stop talking too much about Brexit, I think the country wants political reform, but I have a feeling that Westminster would rather things kept exactly as they are.
I agree. The problem is, how do you get these working class younger people into politics? I mean, I followed politics for a long time. I'm afraid I've lost my way lately because I kind of stopped listening to the news. But my friends always said to me, oh, why don't you stand for this and stand for that? And, in days gone by, I would have. But today, the thought of it just fills me with horror. I'm full of admiration for people like you that relentlessly go on, because I just couldn't. And I don't know where you're going to find these decent people that want things to change. They're just cowed by the whole situation.
It is tough. And I think, a lot of MPs have felt this heat over the course of the last year or so, having never, I've had it for years, but they've never experienced it before. And the completely unrelenting nature, Lynn, of social media, of wherever you go, there's somebody with a mobile phone photographing you, recording you. And I think, actually, let's say this, shall we, for once, that to go into public office does take a bit of guts, actually. I think we should acknowledge that. Lynn, thank you very much indeed for your call. And Lynn, you see, a good upstanding person who's thought about getting into politics, but the whole thing has just put her off. It's a problem, but that one won't go away. I also on Twitter, Noah says to me, I want a new breed of politician, not career-minded, but country and people first. Forget party politics. Noah, under our first past the post system, dominated by two big tribal parties, that will never happen. And it's one of the reasons I want political reform, is I think an element of PR would bring some different, interesting and perhaps more experienced people into politics. And goodness me, don't we need it. John is a new caller from Slough. Good evening, John.
Hello, mate. How you doing, Nigel? Good, big fan of yours, mate.
Well, that's very sweet of you, John. Thank you. Who do we want? Now, come on, John. Who do you want to see in Westminster? Do you think the current lot have done a good job?
Can I just start by saying, all this? I wasn't into my politics before Brexit, and obviously I want to get out ASAP and all that. But it's brought my attention how stupid some of our MPs are. Like who put some of these MPs there? Diane Abbott. That Lib Dem. I just can't believe it.
Diane Abbott, John, Diane Abbott is a front bencher for the Labour Party. She holds a very senior position in our public life.
Well, let me tell you why. Because obviously, you know, there's a reason for that, and you know, and I don't really want to say it.
No, don't go there, John. I know what you're thinking. Don't go there. Right, fine.
And that's what I mean. But I mean, there's reason. Who put her there? She's the reason to tick boxes.
So who do you want to see, John? Who do you want to see in Parliament? Come on.
I'd love to see someone. Obviously, like, you know, clearly they probably need a university degree, but not someone who's been placed in a university. Someone who maybe has gone through the lower education system. And
why do they need a degree, John? I don't agree with you at all. Why do they need a degree?
Well, obviously,
I haven't got.
So you just don't get any old idiot. But then clearly, like,
well, John, I haven't got a degree. Maybe I am an idiot. I don't know, but I don't see having a degree as necessarily a qualification for being an MP.
No, do you know what? I probably agree with you. I probably agree with you there, mate. Yeah. So,
come on, name me one thing you want to see. Do you want to see more working class people, John? More ordinary people?
Yeah, definitely. I want someone who's been in the real world. You know,
someone who's been in the real world.
You can relate to that.
Okay. No, I think John, you're right. I thank you. I'm going to move on. Time is tight. David in Chalfont St Peter. David, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I think that we need people in politics who actually are of an inquiring mind. You know, the role of an MP or indeed of a councillor in local government is actually to constructively challenge proposals put before them and ask the question that an informed voter would ask if they're actually sat in that seat themselves.
Wouldn't that be an even bigger prerequisite for members of the House of Lords?
Well, I mean, the House of Lords, yes, but I mean, the trouble is I've actually seen at local councillor level myself where in fact one bloke who was a lot more experienced than me said, you know, my duty is to support my officer.
Yes.
And I turned round to him and I said, your duty is not to be just a yes man and rubber stamp what your officers, i.e. the civil servants, put in front of you. Your job is to ask the questions that voters would want to ask if they were sat there. And if we actually had MPs who did their research, which, let's face it, nowadays with the internet is so easy, we wouldn't have had such idiocy as the vassal state treaty that Johnson's putting before us, which is 95% the same as May's, but most people seem to be defining that as Brexit somehow. And we also wouldn't have had the 100 billion con of HS2.
Well, David, I'm absolutely with you on that. And I know, of course, living as you do in Buckinghamshire, that is a very real issue. But, David, here's the conundrum. If we have more people in Parliament with open, inquiring minds, and I have to say I'd rather like to see that, then how do the big parties maintain any sense of discipline? How do those two things work together?
Well, I would agree with you that obviously you do need a sense of discipline, and at the end of the day, as you've said with regard to voters, but it also works within parties as well, that after you've had an intellectual debate about something, those who've lost the argument have to accept that they've lost and accept the prevailing...
losers consent, David. Losers consent.
And action.
Yes.
But the trouble is, I think at the moment, we have far too many people who are just yes man, trying to get up the greasy pole to further themselves, and they don't give a fig about...
You're so cynical, David, about our politicians. I think a lot of people listening agree with you. David, thank you.